Hey guys, I've got a little bit more of a fun history story with you. So, the sources for this story actually come from an original book for Cat Island from someone who was related to Wanda Cuevas. They did their own research, they wrote their own book. So, don't hate me for telling this. This is from their actual ancestor and their own research. So, talk to them. Anyway, this is about the legend of Wanda Cuevas on Cat Island. The legend of the hero of America. The hero of New Orleans. Okay, so here's how it goes. Basically, the legend starts Wanda Cuevas was a homesteader on Cat Island, and he raised cattle amongst crops and all kinds of things and traded with the mainland. He was a very popular guy. He actually would throw parties, that kind of thing. But the legend starts where he is there. He wakes up one morning and walks outside his homestead. But he sees all kinds of masts and ships on the edge of his island. So he goes to investigate, and he's confronted by someone saying, "Hey, we are the British military, and we would like to buy some of your cattle for food. Are you cool with that?" And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. Changes money, changes hands. And what the legend says, that's cool. He does his thing. He goes to bed, and he wakes up to the sound of gunfire. So he goes to investigate, and he sees three different British people: a cook, a private, and I believe an officer. Legend, it varies person to person, but shooting at his cattle. So he's like, "Hey, stop! This is not what was agreed to. Don't do that anymore." And the legend says that they didn't agree, and he fires. He shoots his at least a rifle. We don't know. The legend is a legend. It changes every time somebody says it. But the basics were he killed two of them. One of them made it out. Yeah, the legend says he killed the cook and the officer, and the private escaped, but who knows? It's a legend. But what happens next? He runs back to his homestead. He tells his wife and kids, "Hey, look, don't worry about this. The officers will handle this. You guys stay tucked away." And then eventually he makes his way back, talks to the admiral of the fleet, and the admiral's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That shouldn't have happened." And he was wounded in that engagement, and they repair or patch his wounds. The next thing that says in the legend is that Wanda Cuevas was then asked by the British, who want to attack New Orleans because that is a pivotal place for the United States. All the money coming into the country, one of the major ports is New Orleans. So they ask him, "Hey, will you take us into New Orleans? You know these waters." And the legend says he refused. So they start to torture him. 4 hours. Terrible idea. Terrible thing. Horrible. Well, the legend says eventually they give him the ultimatum of more or less, if you don't actually help us, we will hurt your family. And at that point, he buckles and says, "Fine, I'll lead you in," and starts to lead the fleet towards New Orleans, but decides, "I will lead them up the Pearl River instead." And because he is such an expert on the waters and their depths, they run aground. All of the ships start to just crash and run aground, and in the chaos he somehow jumps off and escapes, makes it to a native tribe. The tribe's like, "Hey, what's going on now? Hello, my name is Tim. I need a rowboat. Can I borrow your canoe?" it's emergency. Okay, they give him the canoe. He makes it all the way back from the Pearl River to Cat Island. Tells his family, hide out on the island. Don't come out unless I tell you what's going on. Stay hidden. It's that bad. It's so bad. And then, after again hours of being tortured and all this stuff, does all this, rows or paddles by canoe all the way back to New Orleans and warns the Americans the British are coming, and so they can mount an effective defense against it. And he's called a hero. Now, according to the ancestor, the one who actually did research into family records and into coastal history, tells a different story. So, they say something did happen. Juan de Cuevas was actually said or awarded the title at one point of a Hero of America and actually given a cash reward for his efforts for the American people. But it wasn't for that. What the ancestor discovered was something different. While Juan de Cuevas walked out of his homestead one morning and went to inspect the cattle and the crops and that kind of thing, he saw a ship that ran aground. And the ship, he starts to walk towards, and he sees two guys digging like crazy off the bow of the ship. And so he gets to the top of a berm, and he's like, hello, I'm Juan de Cuevas. This is my island. I imagine it's like that. But they just ignore him. So he's like, maybe they didn't hear me. So he gets closer, and then literally he's like right near them, and he's like, I'm Juan de Cuevas, my island. Do you guys need help? And they more or less, stupid islander, something to that effect. They ignore him, more or less. They rebuke him and keep digging out the ship, so hopefully they can move it off the island. So he's like, all right, whatever. He was expecting a friend that day so they could go on a fishing trip. So he walks back, but along the way, he's walking past the ship, and he starts hearing a knocking noise, like, so what happens, and according to their family story, he sneaks into the hold of the ship and finds someone tied up and gagged. Apparently, he took off the gag and found out this was the captain of the ship. This was a merchant ship, actually, that was bringing silks into New Orleans. And the captain had said, look, these were my men, but they mutinied, and they're trying to take all of my wares and sell them in the black market. I need help. Please, 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 please help. What does he do? So I'm guessing he put the gag back on. So he's like, it's like that moment from The Mummy where she's like, or no, not The Mummy, from Indiana Jones. She's like, oh, you're crazy, don't do it. You know, Indiana Jones put the gag back on. Yeah. First Indiana Jones nerd. Anyway, so what happens next is he sneaks out of the ship, goes back to his homestead. His friend shows up for the fishing trip, and he says, do you have your rifle? The guy says, yes. Juan has his rifle. They both have their rifles, so they go back to the ship, and they pull them out and hold the two mutineers by gunpoint. They then, with the assistance of the captain, tie them up and sail back to New Orleans. And Juan de Cuevas, in honor of his efforts for saving someone from probable murder, who knows, is actually given a reward of $500 and called a Hero of America. Now, where do these stories, the legend and the real thing, supposedly by research, actually connect? Well, Jean Lafitte was an actual pirate or privateer. As he always said, he never identified himself as a pirate. Basically controlled the black market in New Orleans through his blacksmith shop with his brother. And he legit actually did have a letter of marque from Campeche. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But he actually did. Anyway, so he was a privateer. But anyway, he was a pirate to the American people. The government fucking... hated him. Apologize, I cursed. Sorry. Anyway, back then, yeah, they had newspapers, but most information spread via word of mouth, like the grapevine. And if anyone's ever played a game of telephone, hey, Steve smells like feet. By the end of it, it's something different. That's how things work. And Lafitte's story was melded with Juan de Cuevas' story, and now he has this epic legend. He fired the first shots of the War of 18 or the Battle of New Orleans, and he did all these different things, and he was Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, according to their ancestor and their research, there is a little difference in history. History is fun. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you. I know it's been a long video, but I hope you liked it. Good night.